President Biden has a solution to America's gas price crisis. Blame everyone but himself. After ordering the release of 1 million barrels of oil per day from the strategic reserve, the president obsessing over Putin.
Putin's war is imposing a cost on America and our allies and democracies around the world. The start of this year, gas was about $3.30 a gallon. Today, it's about averaging $4.20, $4.22. It's higher in many states. And the reason for that is because of Putin's war. I'm going to continue to use every tool at my disposal to protect you from Putin's price hike. It's not time for politics.
And when he wasn't pushing his Putin price hike talking point, the president was busy demonizing American oil companies.
But some companies have been pretty blunt. They don't want to increase supply because Putin's price hike means higher profits. This is the time, not the time to sit on record profits. It's time to step up for the good of your country, the good of the world, to invest in immediate production that we need to respond to Vladimir Putin.
But there's a huge problem for Biden. Americans know exactly who to blame. The majority, 38%, fault Biden, and only 6% blame Russia's invasion of Ukraine. All right, well, it seems, Greg, that the Americans really understand what's going on here, that they're very intuitive, and that Biden can push as much as he wants. But is it going to work?
No, you know what? I think he assumes everybody is as forgetful as he is. We know what inflation was like before the war. It was soaring. Sure, the war didn't help it, but it was on its way up way before Putin went into Ukraine. But the thing that ticks me off about this is the constant refrain of the Putin price hike means that the White House is more concerned and spends more time with creating handy slogans than actually handling the problem of inflation. The nature of inflation doesn't really affect them because it's not a problem when you're in power or you're wealthy. But the messaging is, we talked about this yesterday, was Yamiki Alcindor. Yes. Thank you very much. Said it's a messaging problem, right? That's all it is. It's everything you need to hear about the left, is that nothing is a problem until it threatens your political power. Inflation hurts the poor, but it's a problem only if it costs you votes. Yeah. Crime hurts the poor and minorities, but it's only really a problem if it's going to cost you an election. So all of this, all what you're seeing right now, is not about morality, it's about messaging. And that's disgusting because we could have solved, he keeps saying, it's all about everybody, we should stop talking about politics. So said that about Florida. Dude, you're the only person that's politicizing this. No one else is. No one cares about the messaging. They just want to get their bread and milk down.
Yeah, and they want to get off that $5,200 tax hike, basically, that is inflation. Yeah. But Dana, do they have time to turn this around before the midterms?
No, here's another one of Dana's rules. I know you like those. When you hear that there's a communications problem anywhere, with a company or at the White House, wherever it might be, 99% of the time, it's not. It's a fact problem, and it's very frustrating to the communicators, because if you fix the facts, if you had better policy, then you fix your PR problem. That's the way it works. Just this week, President Biden called for 11 new taxes on American energy. Okay, so Putin's price hike, you can't get more of a price hike than putting more taxes on energy and gas. So this is another PR move that will actually exacerbate the PR problem and the fact problem that they're trying to fix. The other thing that really bothers me, and I would like a permission to use an analogy.
Permission granted.
So I'm always fascinated by the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, tapping it, and then the White House trying to say that that's an accomplishment. Yeah. That's like trying to get credit for paying off your credit card bill by taking out a loan. And there's no plan to replace it. I'll just say one other thing. In 2020, the Republicans put forward a plan under President Trump to refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve because gas prices were at record lows. Oil prices were at record lows. And Chuck Schumer, the Senate Democratic leader at the time, said he was proud to be the one to kill it. Okay, so now they're announcing to take 1 million barrels out a day. We use 25 million barrels, or I'm sorry, it's more than that. I don't have the number here, but it's a drop in the bucket. And they've announced no plan to refill it. It's supposed to be for emergencies.
Well, you know, with regard to that, Jesse, I mean, they're talking about releasing 1 million barrels a day, which apparently is 1.3 million barrels below where we were when Trump was in office. And in November, when we tapped the reserve, and then again in March when we tapped the reserve, gas prices went down for a minute, and then they flew up again. What good does it do?
Here's how dumb Chuck Schumer is. When Trump wanted to restock the reserves, oil was at $24 a barrel.
Right.
That would have been
deal.
the best time to restock the stockpile. And now, so he's going to shed about a third of the stockpile, 180 million out of the 560 million barrels. That's the stockpile. We're letting go a third of the stockpile. Someone's going to have to replenish that. It's never going back down to 24 in the next couple of years. So we're going to have to pay more money to fill up the cupboard. Bush, in the summer of 2008, when oil prices were really high, did this big speech. And he said, we are going to do everything we can here in America to drill domestically. And the very next day, oil prices on the world market went down $10. It was just on that speech. And that's what Joe Biden doesn't understand. You have to send a signal to the producers in the market that we are in there for the long term. Biden's signal to oil and gas is we're putting you out of business. And that's really bad for business. Here's how stupid Joe Biden is, now that we're on to that subject. You can't just like hop from lily pad to lily pad. Oh, we have an energy crisis. We'll hop over to electric. There's 1% of the cars on the road that are electric vehicles. Only 12% of our energy consumption is renewable. It's not that easy. You can just flip it over like that. So he needs to figure this out because, as you pointed out earlier in your question, this is a $5,000 a year tax hike on the American people, not just the rich. You're making minimum wage. You're getting hit with a $5,000 a year tax hike from Joe Biden.
Okay, and you know, Geraldo, one of the problems is, did I miss you? Yeah, I kind of missed you, but I'm glad you're back.
Thank you.
I'm sure the viewers are glad you're back too. All right, let's talk about the leased lands that they have.
Right.
Joe Biden is now talking about penalizing people who have leases on some of the oil reserves,
right?
Because he says if they don't drill for oil, we're going to punish them.
Use it or lose it. What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with it is some of them don't have roads to get to the lease.
So you
Some of
build
them
the
don't
road.
even-
Why'd you get the lease?
Because
And let someone else have the
when
lease.
Joe Biden ran for office, he said he wanted to destroy the oil and gas industry. So they've got to get permits.
Well,
they've got to make sure there's oil under the lease.
I concede that this is the very worst time for Democrats to go to their climate advocates and cut down on the production of hydrocarbons. I think it was one of those timing is everything in life and in politics. So I think that I concede that. And also, I have a rule that the higher the price of gas, the lower the popularity of the president. There's an inverse relationship. And now you're seeing the price of gas going up. The president's popularity is sinking. In terms of what's going on with energy, you really need now to understand like the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. There's 1.4 billion barrels just in the part that the government controls, plus another 3 billion barrels in there that the private sector controls. So when you're talking about a million barrels a day for 180 days, that's a drop in the bucket out of the Strategic Reserve. What they're trying to do is to spook the oil traders so they stop speculating, because it's their speculation, I maintain, even though the oil industry gets a free ride at this table very often. I maintain that they are manipulating the price. They are taking advantage of the situation right now, and they are exacerbating it. And to make the oil companies like the victims is absurd.
There's more oil in your mustache, Geraldo, than there are in the Strategic Petroleum.
I don't use oil.
We should tap your mustache.
Or in my hair.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.